So good morning all. So in our previous classes, we have seen one-dimensional case of plane slider bearing, Rayleigh step bearing, where we consider the other dimension to be infinitely long. So that is the case of idealized plane slider bearings. So now in this class, we'll start with idealized journal bearings. So okay. So before going to idealized journal bearings, let us see what is a journal bearing, how pressure develops in case of journal bearing. So the basic lubrication in journal bearing. So we already discussed that journal bearing is nothing but a bush bearing. There is a bearing and a journal inside. This is the center of the journal. This is the center of the bearing. The clearance, we call it radial clearance C. Now let us connect these center lines. So here the inside circle is journal, where the outside circle is the bearing. Now when the velocity is 0, this omega, rotation of the journal speed is 0, then the journal is just sitting on the bearing. This is the journal center, this is bearing center. Okay. So now you apply some rotation. So let us say we are rotating in this direction, omega. So journal, when you rotate in this direction, so first case it was sitting on the bearing. Second case, when you rotate it, so there will be material to material contact. So the journal will try to climb over the bearing surface. So this will move in this direction. The velocity is very low. Okay. Now when you increase the speed, then what will happen? The journal and the bearing will be completely separated, and you will have your speed, which is operating speed. Okay, at operating speed the journal will lift up, it will not touch the bearing surface, there will be pressure development. Okay, so the pressure will look like this. This is the pressure profile that will develop in the operating speed. Now when journal is going through from zero velocity or zero angular rotation to operating speed, it is going through various phases. So first one, this is zero or very low speed. This is called boundary lubrication. Boundary lubrication. When it is having low speed, this is called as mixed or elasto hydrodynamic lubrication, and then last one is referred as complete hydrodynamic lubrication. Okay, so it will go through three phases. However, at the operating speed, it will always run in hydrodynamic lubrication regime. So to further understand this, let us draw a graph. Okay, right side it is friction and the bottom axis it is speed. Okay, so this is the value of friction with speed. Now the first one referred to the boundary. This zone is boundary lubrication. This is mixed or EHL. Okay, EHL is here. This is EHL. Okay, elasto hydrodynamic lubrication, and the last one, last phase is hydrodynamic. Okay, if you look at the film thickness, what is the film thickness? It is the gap between journal and bearing. So at the minimum film thickness point, so film thickness will go like this. Okay, this is the log of the okay. So as you can see here, in boundary lubrication, friction is very high. When you are sitting at zero, journal speed is zero, friction is very high, and still to maintain the speed will increase, then the friction will go down. Okay, there will be in boundary lubrication phase, then after boundary lubrication there will be fluid trapped in the contact, so that will reduce the friction drastically. Then you come to mixed lubrication. In mixed lubrication, what happens? A part of the load will be shared by the contact, direct contact, and part of the load will be shared by the lubricant. Okay, so therefore it is mixed lubrication. So after mixed lubrication, we will go into elasto hydrodynamic lubrication. Elasto hydrodynamic lubrication, the contact is the gap is very small, but there will be complete almost lift up. In that zone, the gap is very small, and the roughness will play a major role here. So the pressure is so high that the peak of the roughness will deform, or the pressure is very high over the contact region. So material will deform. So therefore it is elastrohydrodynamic lubrication. So after a while, what will happen? Now you can see here the film thickness. Film thickness is increasing. So when film thickness increases, there will be complete gap. So then it will enter to the hydrodynamic lubrication zone. In hydrodynamic lubrication zone, the friction will be slightly higher, but it will be much lower than the actual metal to metal contact friction. So in this zone, our bearings are generally operating. That is called hydrodynamic journal bearing. All around this, when the pressure develops, in this case, in the gap, there will be fluid flow in this direction. Okay. So in the converging zone, the pressure will develop as the journal rotates in this direction with operating speed omega. Now in these three diagrams, you can see here, I have connected here the center lines of journal and bearing, which is completely vertical because the speed is 0 or almost 0. Now slowly when the speed increases, the journal will try to climb over the bearing surface. So therefore the journal center and bearing center, if you connect, then it will fall towards right from the vertical axis. Okay, this is some intermediate speed. Sorry, but at the operating speed, you will see that journal is shifted towards right. This is journal center, this is bearing center. If you connect these two, okay, the line connecting the journal center and bearing center is towards left, measured towards left from the vertical axis. Okay, so this gap or this angle is phi, and the gap between the journal center and the bearing center is known as E. It is eccentricity. So basically, what we learn? Phi is the attitude angle, and E is the eccentricity. Okay. Now the load acting on the journal center vertically, this is W. So total load is carried by this pressure here, this pressure. Total load is carried by this pressure. Now you can imagine, if load increases, then this gap will decrease. This gap, this minimum gap here will decrease. When gap decreases, eccentricity will increase. That means there is a direct link between eccentricity with load. Also, when speed increases, this profile will change. Therefore, the eccentricity will change with speed also. Again, with viscosity. Viscosity of the fluid, if you change, then obviously you will have different gap. So this eccentricity ratio controls everything with the help of phi. So for a particular W speed, let's say W the load and speed is RPM, okay, and viscosity mu. If these three are constant for a operating condition, then your E and phi will automatically be adjusted to give you the required configuration or operating of the journal bearing. So this curve, whatever I have drawn, this friction is a friction parameter, and this speed is basically the Sommerfeld number. So we will discuss that later on, what is Sommerfeld number. So just you remember, this is called Streibeck curve. Okay, this curve is called as Streibeck curve. Now let us go into the journal bearing derivation, lubrication in case of journal bearing. So first of all, journal bearing is cylindrical, like this is the, let's say, bearing, and this is the journal, so it is a cylinder. Okay, now this is the line joining both centers. This is journal center, this is bearing center. Okay, and this is the length of the journal, which is called as L, and the radius of the journal, we call it as R, is the radius of journal. Okay, now if you take a vertical line from here, from the journal center, this angle is the attitude angle, which is called as phi, and the difference between bearing center and journal center is measured along the line connecting bearing center and journal center is epsilon. Now if you take this as your coordinate system, this line, then you start measuring everything from here. So theta you can take as a variable and start measuring everything in r theta coordinate system. Now if you take L to be very large, which is let's say infinite, so generally we take it a ratio L by D. D is basically twice R, which is radius of the journal. So this has to be very high. So even if you take 2 or 3, something like that, so still this derivation will be valid. That will be considered as high as long as it is not 1. Okay, so we know our governing equation. So the governing equation for for 1D case, considering bearing length to be infinite, so we already discussed, that is del by del x of h cube del p upon del x 6 eta u del h upon del x. Okay, now in polar coordinate, if you open up the journal here, so this is a circle which is having a radius r, and you are measuring theta from here. So if you open up, basically you will get like this. So theta equal to, this is the theta equal to 0 here, theta equal to 2 pi and 0 are same point, and this is pi. Okay, so you can very well convert this equation in r theta coordinate system, that is in polar coordinate. X equal to r theta, so dx equal to r d theta. Then your governing equation becomes, if you substitute on the top, del by del theta h q del p upon del theta 6 eta u r del H upon del theta. So this is your governing equation for polar coordinate to solve this problem of one dimensional journal bearing. Okay. Now before solving this equation, so we can understand that okay, theta is the reference and P depends on theta. When theta is your basic reference coordinate system, then P equal to P theta, and similarly H, the field thickness, equal to H of theta. So what is that field thickness? Field thickness is the gap maintained in this clearance with respect to theta. So first of all, in order to solve this problem, you have to find out what is this theta. Okay. So let us see how to find out this theta. This is journal center, let us say O dash. This is bearing center, let us say O. Okay. Now load is acting at the journal center in the vertical line. There is some load acting here, which is W. Okay. Now this is the phi, the angle phi, and you measure your coordinate system from here, which is theta. Okay. Now here the eccentricity is the value of eccentricity E equal to O dash O dash. So the film thickness H at an angular position theta is, let's say at any angular position you want to measure the film thickness. So let me take some theta here at an angular position. I want to measure the film thickness. Then the film thickness will be AO dash. Okay, is so let me name the points A, this is B, this is O dash. Okay, then the film thickness is actually AB. Okay, which is nothing but this is R. So this AB is nothing but AB, which is film thickness, nothing but AO dash minus R. Okay. Now let us join the line AO dash, AO, and make a triangle like this. So let me draw this triangle AO dash. So let me draw this triangle in slightly zoomed version. Okay, this is A, this is O dash, this is O, and this point is B. So we are going to measure AB, and this angle let be alpha, and let us connect like this, where you have this is 90 degree and this angle is theta. That as per our definition. Now looking at this figure, we can write AO dash equal to AO cos alpha plus E cos theta, where AO dash is actually E. Now for alpha to be very small, then AO dash will become R plus C cos alpha plus E cos theta. So what is AO? AO is the radius of the bearing, RB, let's say. Okay. Now the radial clearance C is defined as radius of bearing minus R, which is the radius of journal. For journal radius, we are just taking R. So therefore AO is R plus C cos alpha E cos theta. Now here this alpha goes out and gives 1, alpha to be very small. Then you will be left with H equal to AB, which is equal to R plus C plus E cos theta minus R. Okay, AO dash minus R. So basically you will get H equal to C 1 plus epsilon cos theta. I am introducing a new term, epsilon, here. So let me show you. This is the film thickness equation, where what I did, I have taken common C, so that epsilon will become E by C, which is called as eccentricity ratio. Okay. So this eccentricity ratio is a non-dimensional parameter, and that is helpful. And this eccentricity ratio varies from what to what? This eccentricity ratio, the minimum value is 0 and the maximum value is 1. Okay. So when eccentricity is 0, then the bearing center, journal centers are the same point, and when journal is touching the bearing, then eccentricity is 1. Okay. Now let us go to the equation. Now this equation is our governing equation. Very similar to one-dimensional case of plane slider bearing, we used to start with a governing equation with imaginary film thickness HM. Okay. Now using the condition HM, using similar condition of film thickness at H equal to HM, del P upon del theta equal to 0. Some imaginary film thickness HM, there del P upon del theta will be 0. So if you use that, even if in polar coordinate system, this equation will become del P upon del theta equal to 6 eta u r H minus HM divided by H cube. So this is the governing equation for one-dimensional infinitely long journal bearing. Now here HM is a imaginary quantity that needs to be evaluated. Okay. Okay. This is a constant that needs to be evaluated. Now let us go ahead. Let us integrate it. Integrate with respect to theta once. So you will get P equal to 6 eta u r by c square integration d theta 1 plus epsilon cos theta square epsilon cos theta whole cube plus C1. Okay, C1 is a constant, integration constant that we got by integrating it once with respect to theta. We are not basically integrating, we are just substituting the value of H. Here what you are doing, you are substituting the value of H here, okay, and then H here, and then just writing the integration, but not solving it. It's not easy to solve. So now let us see how to solve it. So let me write this P equal to okay. So this I2 and I3 are the two integrations. So those are just, you can also define those directly. Integration of d theta 1 plus epsilon cos theta square and I3 equal to d theta 1 plus epsilon cos theta cube. Okay. Now these two integration cannot be solved straightforward, so we have to do some substitutions. So this is done by Sommerfeld, so we call it Sommerfeld substitution. Sommerfeld substitutions. What he did, he took this substitution cos of gamma equal to epsilon plus cos theta divided by 1 plus epsilon cos theta. Okay. Now if you use this substitution for theta, convert it, then you will get sin theta equal to 1 minus epsilon square to the power half sine gamma divided by 1 minus epsilon cos gamma. Similarly, cos theta equal to cos gamma minus epsilon divided by 1 minus epsilon cos gamma, and d theta will become 1 minus epsilon square 1 by 2 d gamma divided by 1 minus epsilon cos gamma. Okay, so these are the substitutions for sin theta, cos theta and d theta used in these integrations, and then you should be able to integrate. So once you integrate that, then your I, you will find out your I2 will become 1 divided by 1 minus epsilon square 3 by 2 gamma minus epsilon sin gamma, and then I3 equal to 1 by 1 minus epsilon square 5 by 2 gamma minus 2 epsilon sin gamma plus epsilon square gamma by 2 plus epsilon square sin 2 gamma divided by 4. So these are the two integration you will find, and if you want to write the pressure expression in terms of final pressure expression in terms of gamma, you can write P in terms of gamma 6 eta ur by c square gamma minus epsilon sin gamma epsilon square 3 by 2, this is 3 by 2 5 by 2 gamma minus 2 epsilon sin gamma plus epsilon square gamma divided by 2. Okay, plus epsilon square sin 2 gamma divided by 4 plus C1. C1 is the integration constant. Now in this equation you can see very well that there are two constants remaining to be evaluated. One we took initially, which is HM. Okay, another is integration constant. Just a minute. Okay, another is the integration constant C1. So C1 need to be evaluated for this. Now if you see the boundary conditions, we can take, let us take something like this boundary conditions. First of all, P equal to 0 at theta equal to 0 in terms of theta if you take, or in terms of gamma if you can also take that. So I am converting directly in terms of theta. P equal to 0 at theta equal to 2 pi. Okay, so this is called as full Sommerfeld boundary condition. Okay, so what it does basically, p equal to 0 at theta equal to 0 and p equal to 0 at theta equal to 2 pi. This is a trick, you know, like there is no boundary in case of a circle, because you are measuring in the polar coordinate system. There is basically no boundary, but your starting point, your measurement you are starting from theta equal to 0. So if you assume this p to be 0 there, obviously theta equal to 0 equal to 2 pi, so p will be equal to 0 also at 2 pi. So using these two boundary conditions, you will find C1 equal to 0, HM equal to 2C 1 minus epsilon square divided by 2 plus epsilon square. Okay, so now in the final form, in theta coordinate system, the final pressure profile in theta coordinate system, P equal to 6 eta u r epsilon divided by c square Okay, so this is the governing pressure or the pressure profile that we will get in case of a journal bearing if you use full Sommerfeld boundary condition. Now, as you know, once you get the pressure, you can very well find out the load carrying capacity and friction, coefficient of friction, as we discussed in plain slider bearing. Now let us see the load carrying capacity. Okay, so if you go back to the figure of the bearing, yes, so we are dealing with theta coordinate system, polar coordinate system. Let us make this to be x and perpendicular to this to be z. Then the two components of the load, that is w x equal to w cos phi equal to minus L 0 to 2 pi p cos theta r d theta. Similarly, wz w sin phi equal to L 0 to 2 pi p sin theta r d theta. Okay, so the two components of the load you can find out using these integrations. Okay, now if you see the pressure profile, the profile of the pressure behaves like this, something like this. This is theta, this is 2 pi, this is 0, this is pi. So the pressure profile will look like this. Okay, so kind of periodic. So now in order to evaluate these Wx and Wz, you can use integration by parts rule. So using integration by parts, okay, so Wx become Lr 0 to 2 pi sin theta dp upon d theta d theta. Okay, so you can substitute, you know, like dp upon d theta, you already know dp upon d theta equal to 6 eta u r h minus hm. This was our starting point by h cube. If you go back, then you can see this was our starting point from where we started our derivation, this one, dp upon d theta. But there we are not knowing what is the value of hm, but now we know the value of hm. So what you do, basically you substitute the value of hm here, where hm equal to 2c 1 minus epsilon square divided by 2 plus epsilon square. So substitute the value of hm and then you should be able to integrate this. So still, in order to integrate this, you may need Sommerfeld substitution. Use same Sommerfeld, okay. Then you should be arriving at this point, Wx equal to W cos phi equal to 0. So we are doing all these integrations, but ultimately you are getting 0. Now it is up to you to decide whether you can tell it directly whether this will be 0, whether this is a even function or odd function, how which function will become 0 if a profile or equation you are getting like this. Okay, still then I derived it to show you how to derive using Sommerfeld substitution. Now in this expression, so what we got, W cos phi equal to 0, okay, which obviously means W is the load acting on the journal, which obviously means W is not equal to 0. That means your phi equal to pi by 2. Okay, if W is not equal to 0, then phi has to be pi by 2 to satisfy this. Okay, so now similarly let us find out Wz. So similarly let us find out Wz, which is equal to W sin phi. Okay, now using integration by parts, you will get minus Lr 0 to 2 pi cos theta del p upon del theta d theta. Okay, so now use same Sommerfeld substitutions. Okay, then you will get finally Wz equal to W sin phi equal to 12 eta pi u L epsilon r by c whole square divided by 2 plus epsilon square 1 minus epsilon square 1 by 2. Okay, so this is the expression you will find for W, Z. Now already you have seen that Wx equal to 0. So the total load basically we calculate how W equal to Wx square plus Wz square. Okay, root over of that is the total load. But as Wx equal to 0, so total load will be equal to Wz. Okay, which is equal to this value. So this is the total load carrying capacity for the bearing. Okay. Now the problem is here, if you see, we have used some boundary condition that P equal to 0 at theta equal to 0, P equal to 0 at theta equal to 2 pi. Because of that, we are getting this type of function. And if you see now the figure, so practically the journal should be oriented like this. Okay, and this is the minimum gap, this is the minimum gap, and this is the maximum gap. This one is the maximum gap here. So journal should be oriented like this, we know from the experiment. But here what it says that phi, this phi equal to pi by 2. That means, so if you draw that, so basically this is the bearing and phi equal to pi by 2 means this is the journal center. That means now the angle phi equal to pi by 2. So this angle phi equal to pi by 2 shows a configuration like this. Here this is the minimum, this is the maximum, and this is the bearing center, this is the journal center, and this is the eccentricity. That means the journal is always shifted towards right. This is x, shifted towards right. So in x axis journal only moves, which is not possible. Experimentally this is not true. Okay. So therefore, and this pressure profile that we whatever we got here, this is not as per the experimental finding. This is not as per the experimental finding. So therefore, people later on did not take this boundary condition. The only problem is with the boundary condition. So later on people did not take this boundary condition. So they use some other boundary condition. But before going to that, let us complete this boundary condition here. Okay. If you proceed further with this boundary condition, so you know, like after finding the load carrying capacity W, we should find the friction, coefficient of friction. To do that, first shear stress at the journal surface. As we discussed already, so shear stress will be different. We derived equation earlier that shear stress should be different at y equal to 0 and y equal to h. So at journal surface the shear stress will become like this, tau j equal to 2r p upon del theta plus eta u by h. So tau j equal to h by 2r del p upon del theta and eta u by h. Now from here you can very well find the friction force. So friction force will be Fj equal to 0 to integration of this 0 to 2 pi tau j L r d theta. Okay, now from here you will get the friction force as this. If you integrate that, u L r by c 4 pi 1 plus 2 epsilon square divided by 2 plus epsilon square 1 minus epsilon square to the power half. Okay, so this is the friction force you will get if you integrate tau j. In order to integrate tau j, you have to substitute del p upon del theta. Del p upon del theta, the way you have substituted here in this case. So that del p upon del theta you have to substitute here. So you should be able to find out friction force. Now the coefficient of friction, mu j fj divided by w equal to c by r 1 plus 2 epsilon square divided by 3 epsilon. This is the coefficient of friction for this journal bearing. Now similarly also you can calculate the friction force at the bearing surface. Similarly, you can calculate the friction force at the bearing surface. So if you calculate the friction force very similar way, the way we calculated for journal surface, you will find Fb equal to two plus epsilon square. Okay, so there is a difference between the friction force at the journal surface as well as the friction force at the bearing surface. Now what is happening because of this difference? If you see, you should first ask the question that if you see here in this figure, now I told you if this is the, let's say I told you that if this is the rotational direction omega of the journal, then journal will be shifted towards right and the phi will be towards left in the vertical from the vertical axis. This is the attitude angle. So configuration will be like this. Now you should ask that how this journal is supported in eccentric position like this, not at the center, not vertically downward. So this is because of the difference in the friction force. Now if you make a line here, this is the line connecting journal center and bearing center, let's say. Okay, so this is the bearing center, this is the, let's say, journal center, this is bearing center. Now let's say this is journal center. Now this is the end of the journal. Now this is the gap, this is the end of the bearing, this is the gap. Okay, now if you do the force balance, then as we already discussed that only Wz is there, so this is W equal to Wz acting and this is distance is r. Now this is friction force F J. This friction force is F B at the bearing. This is bearing surface, this is journal surface, journal to center radius r, and W is only WZ present. So this is the configuration. Now this distance, bearing to journal distance, is eccentricity E. Now in very crude way, if you write R into Fj equal to R into Fb plus W into E. Okay. So I am taking this gap to be very small. So that's why, as compared to R, this eccentricity is very small, or the gap is very small. This gap available here is very small. So that's why I am neglecting that R here. Sorry, that gap here. I am just writing in a crude way. This is the equilibrium. So now from this you can find Fj is always greater than Fb. Okay. So now this is very important for us, that we found that the friction force at the journal surface is always greater than the friction force at the bearing surface. Now from the design perspective, you should always take friction force in a journal bearing F equal to Fj, not Fb. Okay, we don't need to calculate Fb at all. So if it is Fj is higher, so using higher friction force will make the design safe. So we should use always higher friction force. Now this is all about calculation of coefficient of friction and friction. And now let us talk about this boundary condition which we face the problem, where we are always taking phi equal to pi by 2 because we are using full Sommerfeld boundary condition. Now BC is the boundary conditions. So we used full Sommerfeld. Okay. Now if you use full Sommerfeld boundary condition, then essentially what you are getting, this is theta, this is 2 pi, this is pi. So you are getting like this. Okay. Now people suggested that full Sommerfeld boundary condition gives erroneous pressure profile which is not close to the experimental one. So let us use half Sommerfeld boundary condition. In half Sommerfeld boundary condition, we don't have to derive it again. The solution is same. Only thing is that we'll take pressure profile up to this much, where this part will be 0. We will not taking this part. So that means if you write here, so P equal to 0 for full Sommerfeld at theta equal to 0 and 2 pi, 0 and 2 pi, and here in this case P equal to 0 at theta equal to 0 and pi. Okay, 0 and pi or greater than pi, from pi to 2 pi, all over the region P equal to 0. So basically forcefully we are taking out this pressure from here to here. So we are just considering half of the portion, the positive part. Okay. So there is no need of deriving again. What you can do, you can actually take the same pressure profile what we are doing here. If you go back, the pressure profile will remain same. Yes, this pressure profile will remain same. Okay, but you have to only draw up to 0 to pi. and beyond pi you take it 0, all pressure to be 0. Now with that, if you calculate the load carrying capacity, okay, now for half Sommerfeld, load carrying capacity Wx W cos phi, very similar way. Only thing is that earlier you used to make it 2 pi, but now you make from 0 to pi. So we are not interested beyond pi. So cos theta d theta. So similarly Wz W sin phi LR 0 to not 2 pi 0 to pi P sin theta d theta. So integrate these two. Now you will not get Wx as 0. So you will get value of Wx as 12 eta u L R by C square epsilon square 2 plus epsilon square 1 minus epsilon square. Okay. So this is what you will get Wx. Similarly, you will get Wz 6 eta u L pi epsilon 2 plus epsilon square 1 minus epsilon square half. Now after knowing Wx and Wz, you can very well find what is the value of total load W, Wx square plus Wz square root over. So W will become 6 eta u L R by C square epsilon pi square minus epsilon square pi square minus 4 divided by 2 plus epsilon square 1 minus epsilon square. Okay, so this is the value of W you will get, and now if you find the attitude angle phi, which is also not known, it will be tan inverse Wz by Wx. Okay, so phi will become tan inverse pi by 2 epsilon root over 1 minus epsilon square. Now this is all about half Sommerfeld boundary condition. Now if you proceed further, you can find out the friction shear stress at journal surface, friction coefficient or friction force and friction coefficient. But altogether the pressure profile that we got for half Sommerfeld here, this half Sommerfeld, was slightly although we cannot say close, but it is a better approximation rather than full Sommerfeld solution. So people started using this boundary condition as long as there was no other options available. Okay. So now after that, Reynolds proposed one boundary condition which was like this. This is 0, this is 2 pi, okay. Now this is pi. So Reynolds says the pressure profile look like this, something like this. So this is the P, this is theta, and this is the pressure profile. So this will become 0 at some point, let's say theta 2. This point is not known to us. So therefore he defines here that there are two boundary conditions he defines at this point, P equal to 0 and del P upon del theta equal to 0. So the pressure as well as pressure gradient at point theta 2 both are 0. Now you see, in our governing equation, when we integrated, we need to evaluate two boundary conditions. Sorry, we need to evaluate two constants. If you remember, that is H, M, and C1. So therefore, we need to use two boundary conditions. Now in Reynolds boundary condition, he introduced another constant. If you see, this is another constant. This is not known to us. So therefore, three boundary conditions are needed. So he provided us three boundary conditions. What are that? As I already written, but I am writing it clearly. P equal to 0 at theta equal to 0 at this point, starting point. Now second has two boundary conditions. P equal to 0 at theta equal to theta 2, okay, and third P del P upon del theta equal to 0 at theta equal to theta 2. So basically we need to calculate three constants, okay. So we have now three boundary conditions. So in pen and paper this is solvable, okay. So we can solve these equations using Reynolds boundary conditions, but we will prefer this to be solved in numerical method. So now further there are some development, but till now this Reynolds boundary condition is very well used and this is very simple to implement and very stable to get solution, okay, and this is most popular boundary condition used. But do remember, theta 2 is always greater than pi, it appears beyond pi, okay. So now another boundary condition that is called a JFO, which is used in recent days but highly unstable to be used. This boundary condition says something like this. Okay. So that means it doesn't remain 0. Let's say this is theta 2. It doesn't remain 0 at theta 2. It goes slight negative. Okay. So this zone, it is slight negative. Otherwise, imagine in a journal bearing. So in a journal bearing, again I am drawing it here so that it will be clear. So journal bearing operates in submerged condition, submerged in full oil bath. So no external pressure is applied to the bearing. So imagine inside this is oil, completely lubricant present inside this. Okay. Now that if you see the Reynolds boundary condition, so something like this. This is the pressure development. Okay. So everywhere there is positive pressure. This pressure is basically positive pressure. Okay. That means for a finite journal bearing, pressure develops inside the bearing, and due to the pressure difference, pressure is very high. If you see for a finite bearing, the pressure in the z direction or in the length direction will be something like this. This is highest and it will be 0 towards the end. Okay. Now the flow of oil will be at the ends. At the ends, oil will come out from the bearing. So where there is a high pressure difference, the flow will be more. So in the bottom zone, the fluid will come out from the bearing. Then somewhere fluid has to enter to the bearing, otherwise there will be starvation. There will be no fluid inside the bearing. So all the fluid will come out because of high pressure in the bottom zone. So if there is in the top zone, there is no negative pressure, so it will not suck the fluid from the reservoir. Okay. So if the reservoir pressure is assumed to be 0, and if you do not have any negative pressure in the bearing, then fluid will not flow from 0 to 0. It is difficult. So therefore this is the most accurate one. Okay. But using this Reynolds boundary condition gives very close approximation, but this is still better than that. This is called JFO cavitation condition. JFO. Jefferson, Floberg and Osborn. Three people are there, Jefferson, Floberg and Osborn. They propose this. So this is called JFO cavitation condition, which is quite difficult to implement, but and also highly unstable. So therefore people only use this for numerical studies, but here you can pen and paper, you can find out, also you can use for numeric studies, and both these boundary condition will give close result. So this is all about infinite long journal bearing. Okay. You go through this, and if you have any doubt, then ask me in the next class. Okay. With this, let us end. Thank you.